Denise sat in her car in the grocery store parking lot for 11 minutes before she drove home. She had come straight from dinner, first date in 2 years, the blue dress, the one she almost didn't buy. The man across the table was on time, good manners, paid without making a show of it. Nothing was wrong with him. And somewhere between the entree and the check, she noticed something she could not unnotice. In 2 hours, he had not asked her one question, not one. He told her about his boat, his divorce, his son in Denver, his knee. She said, and that must have been hard, and he kept going. When the waiter came, he ordered for both of them. She drove home, hung the blue dress back in the closet, did not return the call, and then she sat with the thought that had been circling her for a year, the one she had never said out loud to anybody. Maybe I'm too picky. Maybe at 61, you take what shows up. I want to talk about why that thought is the most expensive lie of the second half of life. We're staying on this for the next few days. Attraction after 50, what pulls the right person toward you and what quietly pushes them away. If I change the subject, I'll say so out loud. Nobody has to guess. Let's start with the thing people whisper about, because whispering makes it bigger than it is. There is no shortage. In 2023, about 32% of Americans between 55 and 64 had no partner at all. For people 65 and older, it was 41%. That's from the Pew Research Center, reading census data. Roughly 37 million unmarried Americans are 50 or older. 37 million. So when a woman tells me all the good ones are taken, what she is describing is not arithmetic. It's a room, her room, the 4 or 5 places her week actually touches. And here's the second number, which is the one that matters. Only about 1 in 3 single people over 50 say they're open to dating at all. Broken down, 27% of older single women, 43% of older single men. Sit with that for a second, because it cuts 2 ways. If you are open, you are already in a smaller group than you think. You are not one of millions competing. You are one of the few who still has the door unlocked. And the people who are closed are not closed because they stopped wanting. They're closed because somewhere along the way, wanting got expensive. Someone took a swing at them, and they decided the door costs too much to keep open. I'm not going to tell you to open it before you're ready. I'm going to tell you what's on the other side, and then you decide. Here's where most of this goes wrong. Ask a woman what she wants, and she'll usually hand you a resume. Financially stable, healthy, retired or close to it, good with his kids, doesn't live too far. None of that is wrong. All of it is beside the point. Because a man can have every line on that list and still be the man who didn't ask Denise a single question. John Gottman spent 40 years in a room in Seattle watching couples argue. Real couples, wired to monitors, 15 minutes of conflict on tape. From those 15 minutes, he could predict, with better than 90% accuracy, which couples would be divorced 6 years later. And of everything he measured, one thing predicted it more than anything else. Contempt. Not money trouble. Not how often they fought. Not sex. Contempt. The eye roll. The little sneer under the joke. The tone that says, I am above you. Gottman called it sulfuric acid for love, and he had the tapes to back it up. So if you want a filter that actually works, throw out the resume and watch for one thing. How does he treat people who can do nothing for him? The waiter, the kid at the register, his ex when she isn't in the room, the dog, the stranger who took too long at the crosswalk. Because contempt is not a mood, it's a habit. And whatever direction it points on the first date, it will eventually point at you. It always does. It's just a matter of how long the honeymoon holds. The Harvard study of adult development has been running since 1938, 87 years. And they found something that should be printed on every wall in every doctor's office in this country. The people who were most satisfied in their relationships at 50 were the healthiest at 80. Satisfaction with your relationship at 50 predicted your physical health better than your cholesterol did. Better than your cholesterol. That's what's on the table. That's what you're choosing when you choose a person at this age. Not a companion for Saturday nights. A variable in how the last 30 years go. Which is exactly why you get to be picky. Not out of vanity, out of arithmetic. There's an objection I hear constantly, usually said with a laugh so it doesn't sound as bitter as it feels. Anyone still single at 65 has something wrong with him. If he were any good, somebody would have kept him. I understand where that comes from, and it was closer to true 40 years ago than it is now. Something happened in the meantime that nobody accounted for. In 1990, people over 50 accounted for about 8% of all divorces in this country. Today, it's close to 40%. Researchers at Bowling Green State University, who track this for a living, found the divorce rate for people between 55 and 64 has more than doubled since then. For people 65 and older, it tripled. Among women that age, it nearly quadrupled. So think about what that actually means for the room you're walking into. The dating pool over 50 is no longer made of men nobody wanted. It's made of people who were married for 22 years, 28 years, 31 years, and it ended. Some of them ended it. Some of them were left standing in a kitchen, wondering what just happened. Most of them raised children, buried a parent, held a marriage together through a stretch that nearly broke it. That is not a pool of leftovers. That's a pool of people with a track record. And a track record is worth more than a clean history. Give me the man who stayed for 30 years and then couldn't anymore, over the man who never stayed for 3. One of them knows what it costs. The other one only knows how to start. Now, the same thing applies coming the other way, and I'd be lying if I didn't say it. Somebody is looking at you and doing the same math. Your divorce, your 2 years of silence, your grown kids, and your opinions about the thermostat. The women who do best at this age are the ones who stopped auditioning and started matching. You are not applying for a position. You are looking for a person whose damage fits alongside yours without setting it on fire. Because everyone at this table has damage. About 40% of adults describe themselves as insecure in close relationships, and that number has been climbing for decades. Nobody arrives at 60 clean. The question was never who's undamaged. The question is, who does the work of not handing his damage to you? Now the hard part, and I'm going to say it plain because you're an adult and you didn't come here to be handled. The single biggest reason people over 50 end up with the wrong person is not bad luck, it's hunger. The Surgeon General of the United States declared loneliness a public health emergency in 2023. Not a mood, an emergency. Poor social connection raises the risk of heart disease by 29%, stroke by 32%, and dementia in older adults by 50%. the mortality risk is comparable to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. 15 cigarettes a day. That is what a quiet house does. So I'm not going to stand here and tell you loneliness is a season and you should learn to love your own company. Loneliness is a real thing, doing real damage to a real body and yours. But here's what hunger does to judgment. When you're starving, you don't taste the food, you just want it to stop. And a person who has been alone for 4 years, eating dinner standing up at the counter, will sit across from someone who talks about his boat for 2 hours and think, well, he's here. He showed up. That's more than nothing. He is not more than nothing. He is a different kind of alone, with someone else in the room. The women I've watched land well after 50 all had one thing in common, and it wasn't looks and it wasn't money. They stopped being hungry first. They built a week they could actually stand, 2 friends they could call at 9 at night, something on the calendar that had nothing to do with a man. And then, from that, they chose. You cannot choose well from starvation. You can only accept. If any of this is landing, subscribe. That's it. That's the whole ask. And if you'll do one more thing for me, tell me in the comments how long you've been on your own, and the one thing about it nobody warned you about. Not the sad version, the true version. There are people who read those comments at 2 in the morning and find out they're not the only one. Now, let me tell you the part that changes everything, because up to here I've been talking about him. The rest is about you. Everybody's trying to be attractive. Almost nobody is trying to be legible. And legibility is what actually does the sorting. Here's what I mean. If you show up soft, agreeable, laughing at everything, going along with the restaurant and the movie and the pace, you will attract everyone. Every single person, the good ones, and the ones you'll spend 2 years untangling yourself from. Because you gave them nothing to fail. A high-quality man is not repelled by a woman with edges. He's relieved by her. He has spent his whole life reading between lines and guessing wrong, and a woman who says what she means is the first easy conversation he's had in years. The wrong man, though, the wrong man leaves, fast, almost immediately. That's not rejection, that's the filter working. Say the true thing early. I'm not looking for something casual. I don't move fast. I need to be able to say when something bothers me. I'm not moving to another state. Say it in month 1, kindly, without apology, and watch what happens. Half of them will thin out. The half that stays is the half worth your Saturday. 54% of boomers rank honesty in their top 3 traits in a partner. It's the most requested quality in the whole age group. But here's the thing nobody says about that. You don't get honesty by requesting it. You get it by going first. Honesty is not a screening question. It's a temperature you set in the room, and whoever can't survive it will get up and leave on their own. Let them. Let's talk about the apps, because everybody's either fighting about them or hiding from them. Stanford has been running a survey since 2009 on how couples actually meet. By 2017, online was the single most common way new couples formed, close to 40%. Meeting through friends had dropped to about 15%. So yes, online is real. But now look at your age group. Only 3% of adults over 50 currently use online dating. 3. About 23% of people in their 50s have ever tried it. 14% in their 60s. And among partnered adults over 50, Only 6% met their partner online. Read those two paragraphs together because they say something specific. Online is where the volume is. Offline is still where your generation actually pairs off, which means the strategy isn't either or, it's this. Put a profile up because it costs you almost nothing, and 3% of 37 million is still a big room, but do not confuse it with your plan. Your plan is the thing you do every week that you would do anyway. The choir, the morning walking group, the volunteer shift at the hospital, the class, the church committee nobody wants to be on, the dog park at the same hour. Because the thing about repeated proximity is that it shows you a person over time doing something with other people watching. You get to see how he handles being wrong, whether he shows up in the rain, whether the woman who talks too much makes him kind or makes him cruel. An app gives you 6 photos and a paragraph he workshopped. A Tuesday night gives you the man. And if you're going to use the apps, one small thing that matters more than the photos. Older users skew heavily toward the platforms built for intention. People over 50 are far less likely to use Tinder, 11% versus 59% under 50, and much more likely to have used Match, 50% versus 24. Go where the intention is. It's the same as choosing the room. Somebody good will show up. And this is where it gets dangerous, because good beginnings all look the same. The flowers, the long phone calls, the "my God, where have you been all my life?" That's not evidence. That's weather. So here's what to watch instead, and it's small on purpose. Does he do what he said he'd do, at the hour he said he'd do it? Not the grand gesture, the Thursday. What happens the first time you disappoint him? Not betray him, disappoint him. You cancel because your daughter needed you. Watch his face. That one moment tells you more than 90 days of dinners. Does he ask a second question? Anybody can ask, "What do you do?" The second question is where the interest lives. Can he say "I was wrong" out loud in those words, without a speech attached? And how does he talk about the woman he was married to for 26 years? Not whether he's angry, he's allowed to be angry. Whether he can hold two things at once. She hurt me, and she was a good mother. If everyone in his past is a villain, you are looking at the next chapter of a book, and you're in it. None of that requires a year. It requires attention. And you will feel it, all of it, in the first 3 months, if you're willing to stay awake. Most people aren't. Most people close their eyes right at the good part, because looking would cost them the fantasy. One more thing, and I think this one sets people free. You are not required to rebuild the marriage you had at 25. Cohabiting among adults over 50 more than quadrupled between 2000 and 2020. About a third of unmarried but partnered older adults live in what researchers call living apart together, committed, exclusive, in love, 2 addresses, and the research on these arrangements is not sad. Couples living apart together report the same companionship and comparable emotional support as married couples. Late life remarriages show the highest marital satisfaction of any group studied, and those couples solve problems better and argue less than first marriages. They argue less because they already know what a fight costs. So, if part of you has been holding back because you can't imagine giving up your house, your morning, your side of the bed, the way you keep the kitchen, hear this. That is not an obstacle to love at this age. For a lot of people, It is the form love takes at this age. You are allowed to want a person without wanting to be absorbed by one. That's not fear of commitment. That's a woman who knows exactly what she has and how long it took to build it. I want to go back to Denise in that parking lot. 11 minutes, and the thought going around, maybe I'm too picky. She wasn't. She had just done, in one dinner, what most people spend 3 years avoiding. She noticed. And then she believed what she noticed, which is the harder half. The blue dress went back in the closet. It came out again 14 months later, for a man she met at a Wednesday night bereavement group she almost didn't attend, who asked her a question and then asked her another one. That's not the point of the story, though. The point is the 11 minutes. Because attracting a high-quality partner after 50 is not about becoming more attractive. It's about becoming harder to fool. Clear about what you'll sit through. Honest early enough to lose the wrong ones. Full enough that no is a real option. That's the whole thing. That's the entire secret. And it takes a lifetime to be able to do it. You already paid for that lifetime. You should probably spend it. If this said something you needed, follow along. We're staying on this for the next few days. Send it to 5 people. You know exactly which 5. The friend who says she's fine, the one who took the ring off last spring, the one who's been eating dinner standing up. And tell me in the comments what you want the next one to be about. Where to actually meet people. How to tell interest from convenience. What to do when your kids don't like him. I read them. I'll pick from there.